Good Monday makers. It's time to check out some more community builds. And this week we've got everything from a 3D printed magnifying glass all the way to an actual pop up camper made with EMT conduit and maker pipe connectors. So many amazing things. As always, let's just jump right in and start checking them out. First up was a build shared by Paul, and it was for the Colony High School Titan Winter Guard team. And they won first place in Division 1A regionals, which is really cool. And they built this magnifying glass stand and prop for their winter guard. And you can see here that it's just really amazing. Apparently, they 3D printed this whole structure for this magnifying glass. I think he said it took like a week to print because it's broken up into, I think he said 8 different pieces that all, connected together. Then they CNC cut some plexiglass. So they have a really amazing group of people working together to make these things. And this magnifying glass is really awesome. The theme of their performance was I Spy. So they made the magnifying glass. And one of the comments said, I bet it made a lot of ants nervous, which I thought was really funny. That's a good one. But they used conduit to basically hold up this magnifying glass, and they used some flanges that they found to hold it up. And then they needed to hide some other props. I think it was like a rifle and like 4 rubber balls. They said they needed to kind of keep secluded or just out of the way until they were ready to use them in their performance. So they built this box that kind of sits at the bottom of the whole frame, and they needed a way to kind of keep it in place and didn't want it to move around. So all they did was just use T connectors. They added one here, and it's attached to this 1/2 inch vertical that holds the bottom of the magnifying glass, and then the 1/2 inch conduit runs through the box and then connects on the outside back here. Then they just used 2 T connectors they had left over, just clamped onto the 1/2 inch vertical, as you can see here. And then there's no bottom pipe holding it or coming out of it. It's basically just clamped there tight so it holds the top of the box down and just secures it to the frame. There it is. You can see out there in the performance, and it looks awesome. They did a great job. Just such a cool prop and just a nice use, a nice and simple use of the T connectors to just solve a unique problem. Super great, Paul. Thanks so much for sharing that. Really love seeing it. Next up is a build from Kyle. He said it's a stand that he made for his job making music in a military band. So they didn't have a place to put instruments. So they made this stand slash cart that they can use to hold up their instruments. And it's really simple. It's just 90-degree connectors in the corners. There's like a bottom rung going all the way around and a top rung all the way around. And it basically just created this box that rolls around. They've got casters on the bottom so they can, move it around. It has some nice mobility. Then they just use T connectors to add braces from front to back, and then they just attach different stands, as you can see. In some cases, it's just pipe going up with some, like fabric or foam or something, just to kind of create a soft landing spot for the different instruments. And then they're basically able to just slide the instruments over top of these different stands that are sticking up. They've even got some for like a smaller, like a violin or something like that. And it's got a neck holder for different types of instruments. So just really clever and a nice build. Really great job, and looks really awesome. And he said that everybody was happy with it, and they were appreciative of having a place to put it, and they're appreciated how clean it looked with the black shrink wrap, and then they used like black fabric and everything for all the verticals to have a barrier between the instruments and the metal pipe, which is great. So really awesome, Kyle. Thanks so much for sharing that. I'm glad everybody enjoyed it, and glad you have a place to put your instruments now. Next up is a couple of desk models, and this is from Douglas, or these are from Douglas. He's been kind of going through different models and designing different desks he's about to make, and he had a question about the bracing, and I wanted to mention it here because it is a good question for bracing. And you can see here that he's got this upper structure that goes up, and he's got shelves that are going to be supported with an angled brace, which is a good idea because I think he said it's going to be 84 inches wide. So you definitely want some kind of brace somewhere in the middle to break up that span, especially if you're going to have a lot of weight on top. You could just cause it to bow, especially if you've just got, just the supports on the sides and then just a long, butcher block or something between the two sides. So his question was how to brace it. And he actually modeled it twice to basically show a couple of different options that he was trying to do, and then was asking for some advice. So you can see in this one, he used 4-way connectors to add a brace that goes from side to side, which is a good idea, especially if it's like a really deep desk. I don't think he shared that dimension, the actual depth of it, but I recommended if it was like 36 inches or 40 inches, somewhere around there or below, that's probably a good idea to have the angled brace, but anything over that, you'd probably wanna do something like this where you have a span that goes from one side to the other in the middle, and then have some sort of vertical that goes down as well. But if you're doing something, I would say like 36 inches, 40 inches, anything below that, you can get away with just doing an angled brace that the weight up here. So you have still a brace in the middle of it that goes from front to back, but then you use an angled brace to basically send a pipe to the back. So any weight that develops up here or just kind of gathers up here, kind of send it to that vertical, which is going to be the strongest point in the build. Verticals are stronger than horizontals just by the nature of conduit in general. So that's a good idea, like I said, if you've got a depth of like 40 inches or less. But anything over that, I think this is a good option as well, just to have a straight down vertical and a pipe that goes from one side to the other and front to back to be able to support that. So good job with the models. Really exciting. I'm currently designing a desk as well, so I know it's time consuming to go through and figure out exactly what you want and solve all these unique problems. So appreciate you sharing those models and asking those questions. And good luck with the builds. Next up is a really interesting build. This is from Charles. This is a pop-up camper that's made for a flatbed truck. It's currently 250 plus connectors, plenty of pipe, and he said it's on version 3, but he's had 2 years of use, still holding up and improving. It sits on a 6 foot by 6.5 by 8.5 foot flatbed. We can see here he's got some pictures of it in the process, but it's 250 plus connectors, so don't worry, we're not going to try to go through and pick them out, but we will go through the pictures and see it come together. As you can see here, a ton of connectors. He's got some nice bends in there, a lot of T's and 180-degree connectors. And then what's really interesting is the fact that this is a pop-up camper. And he achieved the pop-up camper aspect by creating this 3D printed piece here. And I'm pretty sure I think we're gonna try to get Charles on for like a build interview so he can kind of break down some of the process and different things if he wants to. If you're watching, we'd love to do that. So just reach out to us or I'll send you an email and see if we can't get that set up. But it looks like you 3D printed these pieces that basically go across these verticals, and then it kind of creates an offset so the like outer shell of the top of the pop-up can like slide down, and then the inner shell, is stationary there, and then the outer shell just slides down on the outside of it. Pretty sure that's how it works, and he just 3D printed pieces, as you can see, that allow him to do that. And this is the flatbed truck that it sits on. And then here in this next picture, you can kind of see what I was mentioning, where basically that inner wall is offset from the outer wall that slides over top of it. But here it is pretty close, I think, to all together. You can see all the connectors in there, and it's really elaborate. He said he also 3D printed some custom hinges to be able to open and close the door easily. Looks like he even made a latch that allows him to open and close the door and kind of secure it once it's open or closed. Here's a couple pictures of him standing inside of it when it's fully opened. And you can see that outer wall just basically slides up and that bottom wall just stays in place. And there he is again standing in front of it. And then it looks like he custom sewed a kind of canvas material or tint material to go around the outside of the frame. And I think he said it's got like some snap buttons that he can use to close it. But but there it is in like pop-up form. And he's got the canvas on there, the door is open, and there it is, pop up. And inside it's got a built-in cot for sleeping. It's got a workbench that stays attached to the bottom, and then everything else above just kind of goes down. And just a really amazing build. Here it is in its kind of stowed away form, and you can see that it sits flush with the roof of this truck. It's a beautiful truck, by the way, but it sits flush with the roof of this truck, so you're not going to have any wind really beating up against that really tall roof. If it wasn't a pop up, if it was just 10 foot tall all the time or 8 foot tall all the time, whatever that height is, this allows it to go down, strap to the flatbed, and like he said, he's been using it for 2 years and it's holding up great. It's just really amazing. See, there it is when it's fully upright. You can see there's a pretty large wall there that would be just getting beat with the wind all the time and run the risk of just picking it up and carrying it away. And that's why he did the pop up that just slides down and sits flush with the roof. And this is just really amazing. He's got his stove set up in there now. Got storage for stuff. It's just really amazing. One of the very creative and unique things that we've seen. Just a lot of engineering I can imagine, and I don't know if he like planned it ahead of time. I would imagine so, but Could have also just kind of, started building and then just going as he went. He did say that he's been making improvements throughout the 2 years. But regardless, super amazing build, really awesome, and he said that he was goes on a yearly trip with this. And actually, real quick before we go on to that, the main and secondary frame is Maker 5 with 3/4 inch GMT. The door hinges, lift sliders, and door handle were CAD designed and 3D printed. The shell is 18-ounce waterproof canvas, shown and installed with snaps, has 12-volt power with LED strip lights, a sleeping bench, and a table with storage, as we saw. Really great build. But he goes on a yearly trip with this setup, and he said before his trip this past year, the engine in that truck we saw went out. So he was just kind of left without a camper. So what he did was he built another camper, but this one sits inside of a Bantam trailer. And he basically just built a small camper just so he's able to do this yearly trip that he goes on. And here we'll go through the pictures again and see the process. Here's the trailer he's got. It looks like it has a spot for, pipes or something to go inside already. And he basically just used 6 verticals that just go up and bend. Then he has this upper shell with some, arches as well, using T connectors. And this is a really great example of how we mention T connectors a lot. We always say, in the picture you see on the website, you can see it's a T connector. There's a pipe in the bottom and then a through pipe at the top. We always mention that, but you can use it as an elbow. You can use it to make angled pipes, as you see here, where basically he's got the through pipe, going all the way around. He's got the T connector attached to it, and then it's angled going, up, and it connects to that arch. And he's got that all the way around. It's a really great way to use the T connector. If you don't know, you can do that. Which is, I'm glad he used that so we could highlight that here. But here he is continuing out the build. He added hingeable side panels, as you can see, and I'm pretty certain those are adjustable angle connectors that attach to the vertical upright. And then he uses the end clamp piece to hinge, open and close, which is how we designed it to be. It's made so you can do that, so you can clamp that puzzle piece, clamp to a vertical or horizontal, whatever it may be, and then use the end clamp as a hinge. And that's exactly what he did to create these side panels that lift up and open and close. And then in the front, he also added something very similar, so it can swing up, and he can add, some more. It's like a window, but it also adds some more space. As you can see, he's kind of downgrading a bit from his full size pop up camper into this, so he wanted to add as much space as possible. And he used some more canvas material and put that on the outside. And you can see here, this door will open up and swing up. We can see he used plywood inside the arches, which adds some more support. And then here it is, I think, all finished with the canvas on there, and then everything is closed, and it's just all put together. And then inside we can see he sleeps underneath this table, and then he's got the table there with the heater on top. And then you can see kind of how the gates or the side panels will be able to hinge. And then there's a picture of it with the truck that he's got. He's got a lot of cool vintage trucks, which is super awesome. And then here in this picture, we can see it set up at the campsite, and he's got everything open. So the side panels are opened. This front gate is open. He's got his tables and cooler and everything outside of the trailer out here on the ground and set up. And then he's got, his sleeping area and heater and everything inside with a table in there as well. So a couple of really awesome campers, really great, really intensive. There's a ton of connectors used and a lot of engineering and stuff. So it's really awesome. And like I said, we'll try to get Charles on for an interview so he can, tell us more about those builds and kind of how he went about it. But thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks everybody for sharing your builds. As always, we love seeing them and love showcasing what you guys are doing with Conduit and other ordinary materials. If you want to see any of the builds in more detail, they'll be linked down below. Hope you all have a good week. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.